drop, I know they gon' lean. World debut, I know they gon' fiend. Everything Mississippi to the Palm Springs. Girls from brunettes down to blonde. You know you like that. 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 You know you like that.
Welcome back and let's play. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of La Vida Baseball Live. I'm Julie Alexandria with Jennifer Mercedes and Ozzie Guillen Jr. Welcome to the show. And what you just saw was quite possibly one of the best hype videos for an MLB season that I've ever seen. You got to welcome back the guys. It gets you excited for this truncated 2020 season. Of course, not to mention everything that's happening in the world and the season being shortened due to coronavirus. But that's got to get you a little pumped, right, guys?
Yeah, I liked it. I obviously, we grew up with that song, right? It's like it's our generation song. So I love the music choice. I thought it was great. I loved it.
I think it's great. I think it was a great promo. I know that the people out there are going to say, well, why they're not wearing any mask in the promo video, because allegedly they're going to have to wear one when they're on the bench and whatnot. But it's exciting. Again, it's all the young. I like the fact that everyone on the promo is a young player. It shows the future of MLB, a very diverse future, and that's I like that they focused on those guys and giving them their time.
Absolutely. Soto, Acuna Jr. I mean, you have the regulars. You've got the Judge and the Trout and the Yelich, but to see those guys, in their uniforms and to see where they ended up this season, it's awesome. I loved it. It's great. But let's get to the point. Hope everybody had a wonderful 4th of July. Hope you were able to celebrate safely, of course, and wearing a mask, because we cannot ignore the fact that we are still operating during a pandemic. And that fact was really driven home when the Atlanta Braves announced that they had 4 players who have already tested positive for the coronavirus, most notably Freddie Freeman, whose wife put out a statement talking about how he has been suffering fever and chills and that normally he doesn't get sick. This is a guy who is usually unfazed by the common cold, and this one really threw him for a loop. Like I said, fever, chills. He's been at home. They said that they've been doing everything right, that they've been washing their hands, they've been quarantining, that they've been locked down, but somehow he still contracted the virus. So also a person who also opted out is Eric Young Sr., first base coach for the Atlanta Braves, saying that he is high risk. So he's decided to opt out. But I think, guys, as more and more big players like Freddie Freeman that have just universal appeal to the common fan, I think that it is going to become more and more of an issue that these guys are playing at a huge risk to themselves, the future of their careers, and their families.
And I think that Freddie being symptomatic is that one thing that's kind of making guys think and think if they should play, because as of now, we've only heard of guys being asymptomatic or having some light symptoms, that his wife coming out and saying that he's not feeling well at all. I think that's what's going to make guys really think about it.
Yeah. Ozzie, what was your sort of take? I mean, they said that, there's only certain teams that have tested guys that have come out as positive. And as Jen mentioned, most being asymptomatic. I think it was only 1.2% have tested positive so far. But now we're hearing that there's issues with the testing. So this is almost like a bit of a microcosm for everything that's happening in the world right now.
And I think guys are going to – Anthony Rizzo was the one that said he wanted to get retested, and they wanted, they were going to look at a second party and whatnot. I think that we're going to start realizing the haves and have-nots, okay? Just like in real life. Just like in baseball, you can compare it to the real world. There are players, there are people that have to go to work. They have to go to work and, be the bag boy at Target, that they have to in order to survive. That's the same story in Major League Baseball. Again, people don't not realize that everyone that's opted out is someone that already has had their career set. Okay, they have millions of dollars in the bank. To them, it's not worth the risk. It's not worth the risk to them and to their family. And people need to understand that. That's why when the Mike Trout says, I'm 50-50, well, Mike has a lot of money in the bank, for a 2-month season. And if you're not really about winning and you don't care about that and you're like, okay, I have the money, why am I going to risk this? This happens in two phases. This happens in the COVID-19 phase, and it also happens in a physical aspect of it. King Felix, for example, I don't think it might have to do with COVID. He might have thrown and felt something in his arm, and in a shortened season, you're like, is it really worth pushing this and going down with an injury and not being able to pitch later on in order to get ready for 2 months? Because if you're out for 2 weeks, you're missing spring training. Now you're going to have to get ready on your own and come back. So guys are really going to analyze for themselves personally, is this really worth it to me to play for 2 months for whatever the prorated salary is? So I don't think guys are done opting out. I think guys are just going to be like, guys might just show up one day and say, you know what, I'm over this mask wearing, testing stuff. I'm going home. I don't need this.
Absolutely. And to your point, Ozzy, let's just remind everybody who's watching that guys who opt out, they're not getting paid.
No,
so
not.
Guys like David Price is giving up a $12 million payday
Correct.
for those truncated 60 games that they are about to play. Mike Trout says that he's on the fence. Buster Posey says that he's on the fence. I just want to remind everybody, we have a growing list of players, and it will grow every day. I'm sure
the owners love it, by the way.
Yeah.
The owners are like, wait, you don't want to play? Okay, cool. Like, I'm fine. Good for you. Because I think that people are going to watch the games regardless if those guys are not there. Again, the David Price situation is kind of unfortunate because you traded for him. You're going to lose him for the season. But again, they're not leaving, they're not leaving $10 on the table. They're leaving a big chunk of change. So if that's worth it to them, you have to say, you know what, it's okay. And you have to let them make the decision.
I also don't think, though, that it's about having a winning mentality and wanting to go out there and win. I just think it's like you said about Felix, if it is a health issue as far as his arm is concerned, is it worth it? Or is it worth it to possibly get sick or infect someone in your family? So I think it has more to do with that and not necessarily wanting to win. And I did see an article, and it's been the conversation on Twitter, is the haves and the have-nots. And I agree completely, Ozzy. The guys who are going to continue to play, most of them are probably guys that they feel like they need those paychecks.
Right. They can't afford not to play. And that, of course, puts them at risk. It puts their families at risk. These guys are not playing and living in a bubble. They are going home. As of right now, they are going home to their families. So, of course, in the situation of Mike Trout, his wife is pregnant, and he let that be known on Twitter. He put out a statement saying basically that, and he told reporters also that he was not really sure and he was going to play it by ear because he doesn't want to bring the virus back to his wife. His wife is pregnant. Although it has been found that it is not very likely that a mother would pass on the virus to the fetus, that contraction would happen after the baby was already born and outside the womb.
Yeah, but she could get sick. She could get sick,
absolutely. Yeah. But there are major implications if he doesn't play, if you don't have big name guys. Buster Posey is saying the same thing. He's not sure if it's worth it. Let's just talk about the guys who have already opted out. Mike Leake, Ryan Zimmerman, Joe Rossi, and Desmond, Tyson Ross, Wellington Castillo, David Price, like we just mentioned, Felix Hernandez, like we mentioned, and we're also going to jump into that. And just recently, about an hour ago, Nick Markakis said that he didn't want to play. Go ahead, Ozzy.
I think that this is the only season that it won't affect people's eyeballs on playing.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to watch the baseball, regardless if it could be the AAA team. Opening day, people will be watching. So it's the only time I think in the history of the game, if these big name guys sit out, that's going to be the news. But I think people still watch if they were playing.
Yeah. All right, well, let's talk about six-time All-Star, 2010 AL Cy Young Award winner Felix Hernandez, who signed a $1 million minor league deal in January with the Atlanta Braves. He has decided now to opt out, as you guys alluded to. At this point, do you think that it's also partly because so many, you've got 4 guys on the team that have tested positive, 2 asymptomatic, 2 symptomatic, plus your first base coach in Eric Young, senior, opting out because he is at high risk for COVID. Brian Snitker said, their manager Brian Snitker said that it is unclear whether or not he will seek to compete for a roster spot in a rotation spot in the 2021 season. Those guys have a lot of pitching though. So I think for them, it's okay. But I wonder where King Felix's head's at as far as, is this the end? Is he ready to retire? Or do you think he'll be coming back for 2021 roster spot?
I think it depends on really what happens with everything, right? We don't even know what 2021 is going to look like. past. I mean, we don't know what tomorrow's going to look like at this point, but I think,
Right.
I think with Felix, it's almost like he was going to have to fight for a spot on that major league club, but who knows, maybe it would have been easier for him this year just because of the situation. But like you said, they do have a lot of pitching, and it's like, does he want to put all of that on the line for a 3-month season? And I think it's a valid question. I think it's a valid point if that's what it is. If it is, he's feeling some discomfort, we don't know. Or if it is just, his health. I did find it surprising because he did report to camp. So there's a lot of questions kind of there as far as, is it the positive tests that have changed his mind, made him change course, or kind of what is it? There's a lot of up in the air, but either way, I respect his decision.
I think it's also so a lot of guys, when you retired, what you miss the most is the competition, going to spring training, seeing the guys competing for a spot, being in the clubhouse. That's probably one of the hardest things to give up, especially for King Felix, because he's made enough money we could have walked away 5 years ago and he would have been fine financially. But I think that him being around that game of baseball, he's young enough that he still, I think, has something to give, but he probably will miss a lot the clubhouse. The clubhouse is not the same right now with COVID-19. So him walking in there and being like, well, this is totally different than what I had signed up for, and I'm competing for a spot which I probably won't get a fair shot at. Do I really want to sit around here and live with all these new rules and regulations and people telling me what I can and cannot do? And I'm also risking my life on top of it. You know what? I'd rather just not pitch this year, not risk injury, walk away, and then maybe 2021 it's normal, and I'll go back and try doing it then. Because again, this is not a normal clubhouse situation. So for a guy that's played that long, Nick Markakis is the same thing. Like, is this really worth it to me to be here? I don't really want to be here, and it's not the same situation that it was, a year ago, or like it's been my whole career. I'd rather just step away. I know that for Ozzy here at home, he's like, his number one thing is that, it's a disease and everything, but he's like, it's so annoying just being able to have to manage and be a player in these circumstances of the extra pressure of just how everything is happening. He said that's not fun.
COVID has taken the fun, and that is exactly what my next point is. COVID has taken the fun out of summer camp. They're calling it summer camp. It has taken the fun out of baseball, I think, for the players.
It's taken the fun out of everything.
Everything, I know. It's life. It's taking the fun out of life. Michelle G. Martinez on Facebook says, just cancel until next year, ! I am a season ticket holder, and I love and miss my baseball, but it is just not worth it. Michelle, I kind of agree with you. I mean, from a selfish standpoint, of course, I want to see games played, but man, has this taken the fun out of it. Sean Doolittle, Nationals pitcher, calling out for the public to take this seriously, to keep wearing masks, to keep watching their hands, and to stay vigilant, and reminding people that this is not a hoax. This thing isn't going anywhere. And that sports coming back, Ozzy, I know you're laughing, sports coming back should be a reward for a society that has conquered the disease. He compares America to other countries, developing countries and nations as well, saying they've handled it. They have figured it out. Europe has figured it out. Certain countries, India's numbers are going down, yet our numbers keep going up. I do love me some Sean Doolittle, and I love that he uses his platform on social media for good, for enlightening his audience, and for having his voice heard, and not just for like petty back and forths. Just saying that he is out there and he's outspoken, but he lets it be known that we have to keep this in the forefront of our minds when we are talking about the season. Owners have to keep thinking about this. It's not just about the dollars. These are human beings that we're running out onto the field every day who are very susceptible to this disease.
And I mean, talking about Sean Doolittle, what I appreciate about what he was saying is that he doesn't pretend to know, and he doesn't pretend to have all of the answers, but he is also pushing for everyone to hold themselves accountable, not just the players, but the fans as well. If you want baseball, if you want any sport, you got to participate in the guidelines and what is out there. Look at the other countries that have succeeded at flattening the curve. And lowering the curve, they barely have any cases. I think France, there was a day last week that had 0 reported cases. Meanwhile, here in the US, we have states that are reporting 500 plus cases a day. It's a problem. And the only way that you change it is by human behavior. That's the reason that we flatten the curve here in New York and in New Jersey and Connecticut, and everybody else is still not there. There's a reason for it. And I think what Sean was talking about was really, really good. And also, calling out MLB and the tests that they've taken and them not having test results back. Test results being delayed. I mean, they're taking a second test and they still don't have the results for the first test. They also haven't gotten all their PPE. And so I think it's an important conversation that these guys need to continue to have until whatever is fixed.
Absolutely. We have that video from Sean Doolittle, pitcher for the Washington Nationals. Check this out.
It does bring to mind kind of where we're at in our response to this as a country. We're trying to bring baseball back during a pandemic that's killed 130,000 people. We're way worse off as a country than where we were in March when we shut this thing down. And look at where other developed countries are in their response to this. We haven't done any of the things that other countries have done to bring sports back. Sports are the reward of a functioning society, a functional society. And we're just trying to just bring it back, even though we've taken none of the steps to have to flatten the curve, or whatever you want to say, we did flatten the curve for a little bit, but we didn't use that time to do anything productive. We just opened back up for Memorial Day. We decided we're done with it. If there aren't sports, it's going to be because people are not wearing masks, because the response to this has been so politicized. We need help from the general public. If they want to watch baseball, please wear a mask, social distance, keep washing your hands. We can't just have virus fatigue and think it's been it's been 4 months. We're over it. This has been enough time, right? We've waited long enough. Shouldn't sports come back now? No, there's things we have to do in order to bring the stuff back. So and now you want to bring fans back? I mean, I don't know. Is that safe? I'm not a public health expert, but we should probably defer to them on some of these issues. So I don't know. I don't know if it's safe or not. I really don't know. But that doesn't seem like something that, I don't know if that feels like a good idea or not.
Oh, Sean Doolittle is unimpressed. You could just hear it in his voice. He's just about had it, and he is letting it be known. His patience are running very thin on this issue. What's the over-under until Sean Doolittle opts out? Because I just think he does not have any time.
I'm surprised that he's still doing it. His wife was writing about Corona a month before it happened. I'm surprised he's still even in the roster.
Well, to be clear, he said it on his social media that he wants to play. It's not, he's I know people, he's I think people think I'm complaining. And to be fair, he's I do talk a lot, but I'm not trying to complain. I want to play. It's I just want to do it safely.
I think this is something that they should have probably been dealing with from the beginning, but everyone was so caught up on the money, on what they were going to play for and prorated and all this. And they really didn't maybe pay attention enough to how good was the testing, how reliable the testing was going to be, what kind of testing results they had been getting in the past. And that's a situation that you have to look back. One thing that's very interesting about that I've noticed, okay, if you look the first day of camp pre-testing, a lot of guys were not wearing a mask. A lot of players weren't. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that when you get around your teammates, okay, and you're seeing 2 or 3, 4 teammates of your team being affected by it, either showing symptoms or not showing symptoms, I think it became a big reality to players of oh, people will test positive for this. And 98% of everyone that I saw was a huge group of guys, even running the bases, taking ground balls day 2, 3, 4 with the face mask on now. So I think that for the players, I think it's now more real for them because, again, not everyone knows someone that's affected by it. I think having your teammates, which are almost as close as you can get to someone as a family member, I think guys are realizing, okay, this I can catch this. I am not immune to it. I can catch it even if I don't show symptoms. So we're going to see guys be more careful and talk about it more and start looking at it more because now they're in it for real. They're not just on the outside saying, oh, well, because I think a lot of guys, because they're athletes and they might think, I'm not going to get affected by it. This is just a whatever thing. But being there and seeing, guys that you play with being affected by it, I think guys are being a lot more cautious of what the situation is now.
Absolutely. There is a lot of uncertainty. And of course, this will continue to unfold, and we'll be bringing you all of the latest from who's testing positive and who's opting out as the baseball season and summer camp continues. But one person who is very certain of where he stands on a lot of issues, Trevor Bauer, who took this picture from the clubhouse, just giving a little love to the Trastros, if you want to call them that. You got to love this. Just some lighthearted trolling.
Yeah, I think it was a topic of conversation for sure over social media. And at least, there's some part of the game that's still fun. I think the trash talking is always fun and entertaining. And you got to be entertained somehow. If you're not going to be giving high fives and all of that,
right?
Bring on the trash talk.
Bring on the passive-aggressive T-shirts. Ozzy, do you think this could be a trend?
No,
listen,
to his defense,
put it out there.
He pitches really, to his defense, he's pitched really well against the Astros. Okay. Mm-hmm. I think that he's bringing extra attention to the Cincinnati Reds that maybe they don't want. But again, this is who he is. If his manager's okay with him doing this, it's okay for him doing this. This is not a situation where it's a one-person thing that you're making fun of. The Astros are still really, really good. And when you put yourself out there and you're there talking trash openly, Bauer, it lets it be open that we're all looking for his first start. I know I am. I can't wait to see him on the mound and see, how his analytic world of spin rate and all that is going to come out and play out this season. So I know everyone's watching. I know that, he'll eventually be teammates with somebody on that team. But again, if he wants to put himself out there like that, hopefully it works out for him. I can see guys in the clubhouse having a kind of issue with this because now he put extra attention on the Reds that maybe the Reds don't want, but that's who he is. And that's, again, one day I hope that I'm talking about Trevor Bauer and that he's making a Cy Young run. That's just the baseball person in me, and not that he's trolling because he is the best at baseball at doing that. So hopefully that, his highlights are always like he threw a ball over center field. He wore this shirt. He's a great marketing guy, but, we really want to see results on the field, and that's how you back it up. And he has against Houston, so we'll see how he does this season in a short one.
I'm all for it. I love a good.
Again, and the Astros have to wear it. The Astros have to wear it. I think there's a part of the Astros that if you play for them, that know that you're going to have to wear it for a while. And I think that's why the Astros are one of the most dangerous teams this year. Shortened season. Dusty's got something to prove. I know how Dusty's going to tell these guys, forget about what everyone's thinking. Go out there and play baseball. And they might be they might be one of those teams that says, let's jump all in and let's take advantage of the 60-game season and put another trophy up. Mm-hmm. And that's, when there's something to prove, I think teams get very, very dangerous. And there's a lot of guys there with or without trash cans that I believe that are still very, very talented.
I agree. There's a lot of chips on a lot of shoulders. Yeah. Let's talk about Frank Robinson for a moment. National League Rookie of the Year 1956. He appeared in 14 All-Star games. He's the only player to win both the NL and the AL MVP awards. He also became the first Black manager, started off as a player manager for the Cleveland Indians and at the time, and then managed for 16 years in the major leagues. All of these accolades make him a perfect candidate to replace a certain name on the MLB trophy. Now, here is the name that we're talking about in question is Kennesaw Landis. He was a commissioner of Major League Baseball who used his power to keep baseball segregated. And now, as we are taking a closer look at history, at this point in time, this moment of reckoning, who better, Buster Olney of ESPN writes, to replace that name on the trophy? I'd have to agree with that.
I thought it was a great idea. Everybody was kind of saying, we want to take the name off, but having Frank Robinson's name, having him be honored in that way, I thought would be wonderful. I mean, and obviously juxtaposed to the person whose name is on it and what he represented, I think that it would be a great decision to honor Frank Robinson in this way. We all watched Hamilton over the weekend. Some loved it, some didn't. But there's a quote in there and that talks about legacy, right? And he says towards the end when he says Hamilton, I believe he says legacy is the seeds that you plant and don't get to see the results of, right? And I think that that's kind of what we see here. Landis's legacy, whether while he was the commissioner at the time, during that time, that's what was expected, that's what was accepted. But now we look back on that legacy and you're like, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't be honoring somebody like this. We should be honoring somebody with the legacy of Frank Robinson.
I don't even know if people knew that this guy's name was on the trophy. To me, baseball has two stories. It has pre-segregation and then post-segregation. And I honor the one that's pre-segregation because, again, it was just a thing of the time and it was unfortunate. And not everyone in the teams and the leagues were racist, but it was like something that was a systematic institution of keeping colored people from playing the game of baseball. Once segregation is broken, I think Frank Robinson embodies the growth of the minority player in Major League Baseball. I think that he's someone that carried himself with prestige. He was a hell of a baseball player. He was very, very good numbers-wise. He could be argued that he's one of the top players of all time to play the game. But then he stayed in the game. He was a manager, a coach, worked in Major League Baseball, kept the doors open. He was a manager within Washington Nationals. He was managing at 80-something years old. I think he's someone that, I know Frank Robinson, and Frank Robinson retired 30-something years before I was even born. So for him to be, for his name to be on it, I think it'd be, number one, it'd be a smart idea because I think you can relate to the trophy by having someone's name like Frank. And I think that it represents what baseball is now. It's a new thing. I think people will be proud of saying, oh, we're playing for the Frank Robinson trophy or we're going for this trophy. I think that the other person is, it's irrelevant. There's such a disconnect. There's nothing in common with that person. The game has changed so much. So I think that it's just like the game of baseball, that it's an evolution. And I think that there's a lot of worthy candidates out there. But if Frank Robinson is one of the guys that they're going for, Frank is a guy that embodies what the game of baseball is and what has become and what it's still going to be. So I'm all for changing that to Frank Robinson's name because I think that he's someone that represents Major League Baseball the right way. And I think that it's time because I'm a baseball fan and I only know that other individual because of history, but I feel no relationship to him whatsoever in the game.
All right. Well, we want to leave you with this image, if nothing else, as we think of this upcoming and pending 2020 truncated baseball season. Check out Manny Machado. Taking a little BP.
No, I'm just saying though, Manny's always had bad style, even when he was a young kid. He's just
bad style.
I'm just saying for me,
is more expensive than all of our outfits that we're wearing together.
Correct. And just because it's expensive does not mean it's good. But you know what? Bless his heart. I think that I love the fact that he's doing this now because if this was a regular spring training, people would be frowning upon how Manny's dressed in a non-uniform attire. And he's just being himself and he's just having fun with it. And I think that in so much negativity and so much light, I know that I think his birthday's today, so happy birthday to Manny. But I think he's just a colorful guy. He's being himself. He doesn't change the way he dresses. He is one of the guys that wears suits with no shirts under it, which I think it's an acquired taste. But it is very Manny. It's very Miami. And I'm glad that he's healthy because I think that they're going to need him big time.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I liked it.
I will second that. The Padres will definitely need him big time. All right. Well, thank you so much for watching this episode of La Vida Baseball Live. We appreciate it. Also, Vanessa Garcia sent Rebecca Garcia sent you a happy belated birthday, Ozzy.
Oh, thank you very much. 36 now. Wow.
My gosh.
I know.
Ozzy.
I know.
Don't admit that. Don't admit that. That's okay. You don't look anything over 25. Thank you for watching, everyone. We'll be back on Wednesday with a whole new episode of La Vida Baseball Live. We appreciate you. Take care. Be safe, everyone.
Bye.